the perfect student. The lessons they must learn and how they master these lessons will determine if they live or die. When a lion is teaching its lion cub to cross a river, climb a tree, or evade large predators, every lesson has life and death consequences. If you were a lion cub who acted like a human teenager, your life expectancy would be hours in a hostile environment, not days. The teenager's pouting, stubbornness, requirement for endless repetition, and defiance would be met with near immediate consequences. When a predator is approaching and the teenage-like lion cub can't climb because he was busy back-talking when that was being taught, he would be an instant snack for a large predator. If it's time to cross the river, but he didn't learn to swim very well because he was busy amusing himself, talking on the phone, listening to his music, or watching television during swim lessons, well, it would be over for him. Then he finds himself in a scenario where his mom's about to go hunting, so now it's time to be left alone and to be still in the tall grass. But he's not good at that either because he didn't think it was very important. So she had to tell him at least a dozen times. Unfortunately, he'll be gone when his mom gets back with their meal, but she'll know not to waste too much time looking for him. Every animal knows that the average and below average students die first when survival is at stake. Many of our teenagers and young adults are literally the walking dead. If left to their own devices, without a parent or family member tossing them lifeline after lifeline, they would have ruined their lives several times over. If held to the high standards of nature, most, if not all of us, would be dead. All of us should see God's mercy, His grace, His forgiveness, His patience in a completely different light when you consider that we were once awful and unworthy students, and some of us still are. We should praise and thank Him daily and throughout eternity for overlooking our obstinate, disrespectful attitudes, which extend from our childhood and still remain as we are full-grown adults. There are several tools in this book that are quite effective at getting young people to see themselves in a mirror. As our fellow students on planet Earth, we can learn so much from the standard that the animals have to meet. But let's get back to the coach. Now that the coach has lost his possessions, the next step is to start with God's lesson plan. But here we reveal the next problem. The coach's agenda will probably be to reclaim his fortune. He may even wallow in self-pity for a while. He might think his hardship justifies trying crack cocaine for the first time, or self-medicating with alcohol. If all of that doesn't kill him, he may eventually realize that getting his belongings back is not God's first priority, until the coach realizes he is in this position because the teacher has lessons that he needs to learn. He has to get to a point where he realizes his survival is at stake. That means if God says go left, you go left. If He says right, you go right. If He says duck your head, you duck your head. Once the coach has this joystick-like connection with God, then the teaching will begin. This is not the season for pouting, questioning, and second-guessing God. When he learns simple obedience, God will start the lessons. After mastering the new principles, only then will he find out the surprising truth of it all. The lessons he had just mastered were all he needed to replace everything he lost. And on top of that, with his new skills, he now has access to things he could only dream of before. God never stops teaching. As long as you ask questions, he is waiting to answer. Could the coach have avoided losing his wealth in the first place, you might ask? The successful coach, and all of us, never have to suffer such losses. The animals are actually a reference that we should always use, like a compass aligning with true north. Our successes tend to make us forget about these things. And instead of leaning on God for all of our needs, we begin to lean on our success. God literally wants us to be connected to Him at all times. How would we feel as a parent if our kids only talked to us when they needed us to bail them out of another situation? Do unto others appears to apply to our relationship with God as well. Was it necessary for God to go that far to teach the coach a lesson? I would have to say yes. God was correct based on the difficulty of the transformation. It would appear the coach was not a teachable student after all. I stumbled and fell for 18 months without an interview because I was not the student I thought I was. The children of Israel spent 40 years going in circles before they began to listen. Many live an entire life and never realize why they can never get out of their impoverished predicament. These are life-saving statements. Without my financial fall and without God leading me to meditation as a result, I would not know these truths, and my future would not be as hopeful as it is today. Meditation is not some fad like the next diet or the next self-help craze. It is one of God's tools. Prayer is the channel that we use to communicate with God, but meditation is the channel that God uses to speak back to us. I do believe that in our past we knew this. The truth has been hidden away in plain sight for thousands of years and wrapped in religion to keep us from exploring. As grounded non-tree climbers, our vantage point is extremely limited. There are millions of details we cannot see from our ground level vantage point. This fact makes it incredibly easy to influence the opinions, thoughts, and behaviors of non-tree climbers. I would be remiss if I did not clarify and say that all tree climbers are not bad people or even interested in keeping the masses in the dark. Oprah Winfrey and Russell Simmons and many other successful, balanced individuals are trying to help us by sharing the powerful gift of meditation. Just a few hundred years ago, they would have been prosecuted for their actions, and their knowledge would have been forced into secrecy. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. There's actually one more amazing truth to reveal on this topic. The word survival is like an umbilical cord that connects us to God. When you connect to God in your moment of crisis and maintain that same level of connection after the crisis has been resolved, we can achieve some amazing things. The people who have applied this principle are names that will be recorded in the history book of human achievement. People will still mention many of their names hundreds of years after they have left us. Look at the list of famous people who found themselves in survival mode, where they needed God for everything. Many were homeless, others were beggars for a season. Some, like Steve Jobs, walked 7 miles to get a free meal once a week while in college. Just search the internet for rags to riches, and you will find survivors like Halle Berry, Jim Carrey, Steve Jobs, Dr. Phil. There are countless billionaires who walked the same lowly path and were transformed into perfect students that God desired to promote above all others. So if you are wondering why you have lost everything, and if it's God punishing you, I say again, you'll have to search your heart for the real answer. I just know that many have mistaken punishment for development. Make sure you're in tune and responsive to God like a perfect student. Simply regard your development with God as an essential connection you need to survive. I hope this answered your question and then some. Hold your head up if you're currently living in survival mode. Be open to try something new. The teacher is waiting for the student to arrive. There are many who will listen to this, who are in the exact same predicament. Perhaps 2007, 2008 took its toll on you, and you're wondering if you'll ever make it back to the life you once enjoyed. Well, until you consider to try something new, I think you could possibly be going in circles until the day you die, never quite realizing why this all happened, especially if you allow someone to influence you to believe that this is your punishment. I wish you all of God's blessings. I hope you enjoy the book, The Tools of Navigation,